He was seconds away from becoming the most powerful man in Seoul's underworld. One wedding, one alliance, one perfect lie. But then the text arrived. 6 words that shattered everything. She's alive. 6 months pregnant. Kang Min-Jae, the ice-cold Korean Mafia boss everyone feared, did the unthinkable. He walked away from the altar, leaving his bride humiliated and a room full of crime lords stunned into silence. But this wasn't just cold feet. This was war. Because the bride knew. She had always known. She orchestrated everything. The disappearance, the lies, the perfect trap. And now, the woman he thought was dead is running for her life, carrying his child, while every syndicate in Korea wants her eliminated. Love, betrayal, blood. This is the story of a man who had to choose between his empire and his soul. If you're ready for a story that will leave you breathless, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. You won't believe how this ends. The phone vibrated once. Min-Jae felt it against his chest, tucked inside the inner pocket of his custom-made suit. He stood at the altar, the golden lights of the crystal ballroom casting everything in an ethereal glow that made the hundreds of guests look like figures in a painting. Politicians, CEOs, crime bosses from 5 different syndicates, all gathered to witness the merger that would reshape Seoul's underworld. His bride stood 3 feet away, draped in white silk that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. Rin, daughter of the Yoon family. Beautiful in the way ice sculptures were beautiful. Perfect, cold, untouchable. Her eyes met his, and she smiled that practiced smile she perfected over 28 years of being groomed for exactly this moment. The officiant droned on about unity and commitment. Words that meant nothing here. This wasn't about love. It was about territory, about ending a 3-year conflict that had left bodies stacked in warehouses and alleys across the city. The Kang family and the Yoon family finally united. The phone vibrated again. Min-Jae's jaw tightened. He'd given explicit orders. No interruptions. Not today. Not during the one performance he'd been forced to rehearse for months. He was Kang Min-Jae, the man they called the Ice King, the strategist who turned his father's struggling organization into the most feared criminal enterprise in Korea. He didn't get interrupted. The phone vibrated a 3rd time. Something cold slithered down his spine. 3 times meant emergency. 3 times meant protocol had been shattered. 3 times meant someone was about to die or something had gone catastrophically wrong. Rin's smile never wavered, but her eyes flickered to his chest where the phone sat. Did she know? Was that curiosity in her expression or something else? Do you, Kang Min-Jae, taking Rin to be your lawfully wedded wife? The words hung in the air like smoke. 600 people held their breath. His father, Chairman Kang, sat in the front row, his expression carved from stone, but Min-Jae could read the warning there. Don't embarrass me. Don't ruin this. Everything we've built depends on this moment. Min-Jae reached into his jacket. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several men in the audience shifted, hands moving toward concealed weapons. But Min-Jae only pulled out his phone, his movements deliberate, controlled. He looked at the screen. The message was from a number he didn't recognize. But the words made his blood stop. She's alive. 6 months pregnant. The bride knows. His hand, the hand that had never trembled when signing death warrants, when pulling triggers, when watching empires burn, shook. Just slightly. Just enough. He looked up at Rin. She was still smiling. Min-Jae, the officiant prompted, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The ballroom felt too small suddenly. Too hot. The faces of the guests blurred into a mass of expectations and demands and lies. All lies. Everything had always been lies. Min-Jae took 1 step back from the altar. The gasps turned into murmurs. His father stood, fury blazing in his eyes. Rin's smile finally cracked, just at the edges. This wedding, Min-Jae said, his voice cutting through the confusion like a blade, is cancelled. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then chaos erupted. His father shouted something. The Yoon family members surged forward. Security personnel converged. But Min-Jae was already moving, pushing through the crowd, his mind racing faster than his feet. She's alive. Amara was alive. He made it to the east exit, where his head of security, Dae-Young, was already waiting, face pale. Sir, what's happening? What are your orders? Lock down the building. Nobody leaves until I say so. And find out who sent me that message. The families are going to riot. Then let them riot. Min-Jae grabbed Dae-young by his collar. Find out who sent that message. Now. He released him and kept moving, taking the private elevator down to the underground garage. His driver had the car running before Min-Jae even reached it. Good. Loyalty was hard to find, but Min-Jae paid well for it. Where to, sir? Drive. Just drive. I need to think. The car pulled out into Seoul's late afternoon traffic. Behind them, the Crystal Ballroom was probably imploding. His father would be making calls, trying to salvage the alliance. The Yoon family would be screaming betrayal. The other families would be calculating how to profit from the chaos. Min-Jae didn't care about any of it. He pulled up the message again. Read it 5 times. 10 times. She's alive. 6 months pregnant. The bride knows. 3 years ago, Amara Okoye had vanished from his life like smoke. One day, she was in his penthouse, laughing at something he'd said, her Nigerian accent turning his name into music. The next day, she was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just empty closets and a silence that had nearly destroyed him. He'd searched for months. Used every resource, every contact, every dirty trick he knew. Nothing. It was like she'd never existed. Eventually, he forced himself to stop, to accept that she'd left him, that whatever they'd had wasn't strong enough to survive his world. He'd been wrong. Sir! His driver's voice pulled him back. We're being followed. Min-Jae glanced at the side mirror. Black sedan, 3 cars back. Professional tail, not even trying to hide. Lose them. The driver nodded and took a sharp right, weaving through side streets with practiced ease. Min-Jae's phone buzzed again. Different number this time. We need to talk. 30 minutes. Honggang Park, South Entrance. Come alone or she dies tonight. No signature. No identification. But Min-Jae knew manipulation when he saw it. Someone was playing a game, and they just made the opening move. His phone rang. His father. Min-Jae answered. I know you're angry. Angry. Chairman Kang's voice was quiet, which was worse than shouting. You just destroyed a $500 million alliance in front of every major player in this city. Angry doesn't begin to cover what I am. Someone sent me information. About Amara. Silence. Then, the Nigerian girl who ran away? Min-Jae, that was 3 years ago. She's gone. Whatever game someone is playing. She's pregnant. 6 months. And Seo-rin knew. More silence. His father was calculating, always calculating. If that's true, then this is bigger than a canceled wedding. Where are you? Handling it. Min-Jae, listen to me. If Amara Okoye is alive and pregnant with your child, she's a liability. To you, to this family, to everything we've built. You understand that, don't you? Min-Jae closed his eyes. Yes, he understood. In his world, love was a weakness. Children were leverage. Amara being alive meant she could be used against him. The child could be used against him. His father was about to suggest the logical solution, eliminate the problem. I'll handle it, Min-Jae repeated and hung up. 28 minutes later, he stood at the south entrance of Honggang Park, watching the river reflect the city lights. He'd sent his driver away, come alone as instructed. Stupid, tactically. But if someone wanted him dead, there were easier ways than this elaborate setup. Kang Min-Jae, the man himself. The voice came from behind. Min-Jae turned slowly, hands visible, showing he was unarmed. The man approaching was in his 40s, thick-built, with the walk of someone who'd been in law enforcement. Detective, Min-Jae guessed. Maybe retired. You sent the messages, Min-Jae said. Not a question. I did. My name is Han. Detective Han, though I'm not exactly on active duty anymore. He stopped 10 feet away, keeping distance between them. Smart. I've been watching Amara Okoye for 3 months. Where is she? Safe. For now. But that can change very quickly depending on how this conversation goes. Han pulled out a phone, showed Min-Jae a photo. Amara, heavily pregnant, standing in what looked like a cheap apartment. She looked tired, scared, but alive. So beautifully, impossibly alive. Min-Jae's chest constricted. What do you want? To tell you a story. 3 years ago, your bride-to-be, Yoon Seo-rin, found out about your relationship with Amara. Did you know that? He hadn't. He'd been careful, kept Amara separate from his business life. Or so he thought. Han continued. Seo-rin saw Amara as a threat to the arranged marriage that had been planned since you both were teenagers. So she made a deal with certain people in your organization. People loyal to your father, not to you. They approached Amara, told her that if she didn't leave immediately, they'd kill her entire family back in Nigeria. Showed her photos of her parents, her siblings, their addresses, their routines. Made it very clear they could reach anyone she loved. The river suddenly sounded too loud. Or maybe that was the blood rushing in Min-Jae's ears. Amara had 48 hours to disappear. She couldn't tell you, couldn't leave a note, couldn't contact you ever again. If she did, the deal was off. So she ran, changed her name, hid in Malaysia for 2 years, then Indonesia, then finally risked coming back to Korea 6 months ago because she ran out of money and had nowhere else to go. And you found her, Min-Jae said flatly. I found her. I was hired to find her, actually, by Seo-rin. She wanted to make sure Amara was still complying with the agreement. But when I saw that she was pregnant, I realized this was bigger than a jilted lover hiding from threats. This was about succession, about your heir, about power. So you're here to blackmail me. Han laughed without humor. I'm here to sell you information. For 300 million won, I'll tell you exactly where Amara is, give you all the evidence of Seo-rin's involvement, and disappear. You'll never hear from me again. Refuse, and I send this information to your father, to the Yoon family, and to 5 other interested parties who would love to use a pregnant woman and an unborn child as leverage against the Ice King. Min-Jae stared at the detective. 300 million won was nothing. He carried more than that in untraceable accounts as emergency funds. But paying Han meant trusting him, and trust was a currency Min-Jae rarely dealt in. You have 30 seconds to decide, Han added. After that, I walk, and Amara's location goes to the highest bidder. I'll pay you 600 million, Min-Jae said. But you don't disappear. You protect her. 24-hour security, until I can arrange something permanent. Han blinked. That's not. 1 million won per hour, guaranteed for the next month, regardless of what happens. That's 720 million total. You'd be stupid to refuse. The detective's eyes narrowed, calculating. Finally, he nodded. Deal. But Min-Jae, you should know something else. Seo-rin didn't just threaten Amara 3 years ago. She's been monitoring her this whole time. And now that the wedding is off, her orders have changed. She wants Amara and the baby dead before sunrise tomorrow. Min-Jae's blood turned to ice. Where is she? Yeongdongpo District. 4th floor walk-up, apartment 403. But Min-Jae, they're already moving. I'd say you have maybe an hour before the first team arrives. Min-Jae was already running. The drive to Yeongdongpo took 35 minutes through traffic that seemed deliberately designed to torture him. Min-Jae made 6 phone calls during the drive, mobilizing his most trusted people, the ones he knew hadn't been compromised by his father or Seo-rin's influence. By the time he arrived at the rundown apartment building, he had 4 armed men with him and an exfiltration plan in place. The building had no security, no cameras. Perfect for hiding. Terrible for defending. Min-Jae took the stairs 3 at a time, his men spreading out to cover the exits and watch for incoming threats. Apartment 403's door was cheap wood, probably hadn't been replaced since the 80s. Min-Jae knocked. 3 times, paused twice more. The signal Han had given him. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Amara. It's me. It's Min-Jae. Open the door. Still nothing. Dread coiled in his stomach. He signaled to one of his men, who produced a lock-picking kit. 15 seconds later, the door swung open. The apartment was barely larger than a closet. 1 room serving as bedroom, kitchen, and living space. A bathroom, so small you could probably touch all 4 walls while standing in the center. And in the corner, pressed against the wall with a kitchen knife in her shaking hands, was Amara. She looked nothing like the woman he remembered. That Amara had been vibrant, confident, always moving like she was dancing to music only she could hear. This woman was thin except for her swollen belly, her hair pulled back in a hasty bun, her eyes wild with fear and exhaustion. "Don't come closer," she said, her voice hoarse. I don't care if Han sent you. I don't care what deal you made. I'm not going anywhere. Min-Jae held up his hands, staying in the doorway. His men waited in the hallway, giving them space. Amara, it's me. I know who you are. Her accent was thicker than he remembered, stress making her words blur together. I've known who you are for 5 years. The question is, do you know who I am? Or do you just see a problem that needs to be eliminated? The knife trembled in her grip. She was terrified. Of him. Of his world. Of everything he represented. I know you're the woman who disappeared from my life 3 years ago without a word. I know you're 6 months pregnant with my child. And I know that Seo-rin has people coming here to kill you both within the next hour. Amara's expression didn't change. Then they'll die trying. I didn't survive 3 years on the run just to let someone take my baby from me. Our baby, Min-Jae corrected softly. She laughed, sharp and bitter. Your baby? You didn't even know it existed until today. This child is mine. Mine to protect. Mine to raise. Mine to keep far away from your world of blood and power and lies. You're right. The admission seemed to surprise her. Min-Jae took one careful step into the apartment. You're absolutely right. I would have had no idea if Han hadn't sent that message. But I know now. And I'm not letting anyone hurt you or our child. So you have 2 choices. Come with me now. Let me get you somewhere safe. Somewhere Seo-rin and everyone else can't reach you. Or stay here and fight off professional killers with a kitchen knife. Third option, Amara said. You leave, I disappear again, and your child grows up never knowing that their father chose power over people. I didn't choose power over you. I never knew you were in danger. No. She lowered the knife slightly, and Min-Jae saw something worse than fear in her eyes. Disappointment. You never wondered why I left. Never questioned why a woman who told you she loved you would just vanish. You accepted it so easily, Min-Jae. Like I was just another transaction that fell through. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Because she was right. He'd mourned her loss, yes. He'd searched for her. But when the search turned up nothing, he'd done what he always did. Compartmentalized. Moved on. Focused on business. Let the marriage arrangement proceed because it made strategic sense. I searched for you for 8 months, he said quietly. Used every resource I had. When I found nothing, I thought you'd chosen to leave. That maybe you'd realized what being with me meant and decided it wasn't worth it. They threatened my family, Min-Jae. My parents, my sisters, my nephew who was barely 2 years old. They showed me photos, surveillance footage. They knew my mother's route to work, knew what school my youngest sister attended. They made it very clear that if I tried to contact you, if I told anyone the truth, those people would die. So I ran. I ran and I kept running until I couldn't run anymore. She touched her belly, and Min-Jae saw the tears now, streaming down her face. And then I found out I was pregnant. 4 months ago. I was in Jakarta, living in a hostel, working under the table at a restaurant. I had maybe $100 to my name. I couldn't bring a baby into that. So I came back here, to Korea, because I don't know what I thought, that maybe enough time had passed. That maybe they'd forgotten about me. They didn't forget. Seo-rin has been tracking you. Amara nodded. I know. I've seen the same car 3 times this week. Different drivers, but same car. I knew they'd found me. I was planning to run again tomorrow, but now. She gestured at her belly helplessly. I can barely walk upstairs without getting winded. How am I supposed to run? A sound from outside, footsteps on the stairs, moving fast. Multiple people. Min-Jae's phone buzzed. Message from Dae-hyung watching the street. 3 vehicles just arrived. Minimum 8 hostiles, probably more. Armed. They're surrounding the building. He looked at Amara. Decision time. Come with me now, or we both die here in the next 5 minutes. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then she dropped the knife and held out her hand. Min-Jae crossed the room in 2 strides, took her hand, and pulled her close. She smelled like cheap soap and fear, and underneath it all, that scent he'd never forgotten. Cocoa butter and something uniquely her. I've got you, he murmured. I'm not letting go again. He activated his comm. Dae-hyung were coming out. North stairwell. Have the car at the back alley entrance, engine running. Everyone else, provide cover. Sir, There are too many. I don't care if there's 100. Clear a path. He grabbed the small backpack Amara pointed to, presumably everything she owned in the world, and guided her to the door. She moved slowly, one hand supporting her belly, the other gripping his arm with surprising strength. They made it down one flight of stairs before the shooting started. The sound was deafening in the narrow stairwell. Min-Jae pushed Amara against the wall, shielding her with his body as his men engaged the incoming attackers. Someone screamed. Bodies hit the floor. The smell of gunpowder and blood filled the air. "Keep moving," Min-Jae ordered, keeping himself between Amara and the chaos. "Don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep moving." They reached the third-floor landing. Second floor. Amara was panting, each step clearly painful. Min-Jae wanted to carry her but knew that would slow them down more, make them both easier targets. First floor. The back exit was 30 feet away. Through the door's window, Min-Jae could see Dae-young and the car exactly where they needed to be. Then the door burst open and 3 men rushed in, weapons raised. Min-Jae reacted on instinct. He grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it at the nearest attacker, catching him in the chest and sending him sprawling. The second man got a shot off, but Min-Jae was already moving, closing the distance, redirecting the weapon's barrel. The gun fired into the ceiling, raining plaster down on them. Min-Jae drove his elbow into the man's throat and took the weapon as he fell. The third man had his gun pointed at Amara. Time slowed. Min-Jae raised the stolen weapon, knowing he wouldn't be fast enough. The attacker's finger was already tightening on the trigger. In that instant, Min-Jae saw 3 years of searching, 3 years of grief, 3 years of building walls around his heart, all about to be reduced to nothing. To red blood on dirty tile. To another funeral. To permanent emptiness. The shot echoed, but it wasn't the attacker who fired. Detective Han materialized from a side hallway, his own weapon smoking. The attacker dropped without a sound, a neat hole in the center of his forehead. 600 million won better cover hazard pay, Han said dryly, then jerked his head toward the exit. Move. Now. They're regrouping. They burst through the back door into the alley. Dae-young had the rear door of the bulletproof sedan open. Min-Jae practically threw Amara into the back seat, climbed in after her. Han dove into the front passenger seat, and then they were moving, tires screaming as Dae-young took the corner at a speed that probably violated several laws of physics. Gunfire erupted behind them. The back window starred with impacts but held. Bulletproof glass. Min-Jae had insisted on it months ago, and now he was grateful for his paranoia. Amara was shaking uncontrollably beside him, both hands pressed to her belly. "The baby. Is the baby? We need a doctor," Min-Jae snapped at Dae-young. "Now!" "Already on it, sir. Dr. Choi is meeting us at the safe house in Gangnam." Min-Jae pulled Amara close, feeling her violent trembling. "Breathe. Just breathe. You're safe now. I've got you. Those men. They were going to. They're not going to do anything now. Focus on breathing. Focus on the baby." She nodded against his chest, her breathing gradually slowing from panicked gasps to something closer to normal. They drove in tense silence for 15 minutes, taking an indirect route through the city, switching vehicles twice to throw off any tails. The safe house was actually a luxury apartment Min-Jae owned under a shell corporation, one of a dozen properties his father didn't know about. Dr. Choi, a discreet physician who treated Min-Jae's people for years, was waiting inside with a full medical setup. The examination took 30 agonizing minutes. Min-Jae waited outside the bedroom, pacing like a caged animal, while Han cleaned his weapon and Dae-young coordinated security rotations. Finally, Dr. Choi emerged. "The baby is fine. Strong heartbeat, normal movement. The mother is suffering from stress and malnutrition, but nothing life-threatening. She needs rest, proper food, and to avoid any more gunfights." The doctor gave Min-Jae a pointed look. "I trust you can manage that?" "Yes. Thank you, doctor. I've given her a mild sedative. She'll sleep for a few hours. I'll be back tomorrow to check on her." Dr. Choi packed his bag. "Oh, and Min-Jae. Congratulations. It's a girl." A girl. He was going to have a daughter. The information didn't quite fit in his brain, like trying to load new software into an outdated system. After the doctor left, Min-Jae entered the bedroom. Amara was asleep, finally looking peaceful. He sat in the chair beside the bed, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, the way her hand rested protectively on her belly even in sleep. A daughter. His daughter. His and Amara's. His phone buzzed. 12 missed calls from his father. 23 from Seo-rin. 15 from various family members and business associates. He ignored all of them and called the one person whose opinion he actually valued. Min-Jae! His sister, Kang Min-Jae, answered on the first ring. She was 3 years younger, living in New York, deliberately distant from the family business. What the hell happened? Dad called me screaming about the wedding. He said you lost your mind. Maybe I did. Hi, Jean, I need your help. What kind of help? The kind that gets a pregnant woman and baby out of Korea safely. New identity, new passport, money, everything. Silence. Then, the Nigerian woman. She's back. She never left. She was forced to run. By Seo-rin and people in our own organization. More silence. Hygiene was thinking, calculating. She'd inherited their father's strategic mind, but thankfully not his ruthlessness. If I help you do this, Dad will never forgive either of us. The family will cut us off. We'll be targets. I know. And you're still asking? Yes. Okay, I'm in. But Min-Jae, this can't be halfway. If we're doing this, we're burning the entire bridge. Scorched earth. You understand? I understand. Good. Give me 6 hours. I'll have everything ready. She hung up. Min-Jae sat in the darkened room, watching Amara sleep, and wondered when exactly he decided to throw away everything he'd built for a woman and a child he barely knew. Except that wasn't quite true, was it? He'd known Amara 5 years ago, before the marriage arrangement became ironclad, before his father's health started failing and the pressure to secure the family's future became overwhelming. Min-Jae had met a Nigerian exchange student at a charity gala. She'd been there reluctantly, dragged by a friend who thought it would be networking. She'd spent the entire evening in the corner, looking profoundly uncomfortable in a borrowed dress, counting the minutes until she could leave. Min-Jae had approached her because she was the only person in the room who looked as miserable as he felt. "Planning your escape route?" he'd asked. She'd startled, then smiled. "Is it that obvious?" Only to someone doing the same thing. "I'm Min-Jae. Amara. And yes, I'm definitely plotting. These shoes are killing me. The food is terrible, and I'm pretty sure half the people here are money laundering." He'd laughed. Actually laughed, which was rare. "You're probably right. What are you studying?" "International development." Which makes these events incredibly ironic since most of the people here got rich by exploiting developing countries. She'd been sharp, funny, unimpressed by wealth and status. They talked for 2 hours, tucked in that corner, ignoring the gala entirely. When the night ended, he'd asked for her number. She'd given it with a warning. "I'm leaving in 6 months. Back to Nigeria. So don't get attached." He'd gotten attached anyway. The affair had been secret, passionate, impossible. She'd known he was involved in business, but not the full extent. He kept her separate from that world, meeting her at her tiny apartment or anonymous hotels, places where Kang Min-Jae didn't exist, and he could just be Min-Jae, the man who loved listening to her talk about sustainable agriculture and dream about building schools in rural Nigeria. And then she'd vanished, and he'd convinced himself it was for the best. That loving someone meant wanting them far from his world, even if it destroyed him in the process. He'd been such a coward. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Han entered, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You look like hell," the detective observed, handing him a cup. "I feel worse. Thank you. For back there." Han shrugged. "You're paying me extremely well. Plus, I have 3 daughters. The idea of anyone threatening a pregnant woman pisses me off." They drank in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Han said, "You should know something. While you were in here, I got a message from a contact in the Yin family. Seo-rin has issued a formal bounty. 50 million won for information leading to Amara's location. 100 million for delivery, alive or dead. The entire underworld knows now." Min-Jae closed his eyes. Of course, Seo-rin wasn't just angry about the cancelled wedding. She was making sure that even if Min-Jae got Amara out of Korea, there would always be someone hunting them. The bounty would follow them anywhere. There's more, Han continued. Your father called a meeting. Every family boss, every major player. He's claiming you've had a mental breakdown due to stress. He's asking the families to support having you temporarily removed from leadership while you recover. He's using this to take back control. Looks like it. The meeting is tomorrow night at the Grand Hyatt. If you don't show up, it'll be seen as confirmation that you're unfit. If you do show up without answers, same result. Min-Jae set down his coffee cup. What do you think I should do? Honestly, get on a plane tonight. Take the woman and run. You got enough money stashed away to live 10 lifetimes. Let your father have his empire. It's already poison. And if I don't run, Han studied him for a long moment, then you better be ready to start a war. Because that's what this will become. Your father and Seo-rin on one side, you on the other. Everyone else will pick sides based on who they think will win. A lot of people are going to die. They were going to kill her, Min-Jae said quietly. Amara. She was just collateral damage in their power games. They were going to eliminate her like she was nothing. She's not nothing to you. No, she's everything. And that's the problem, isn't it? In my world, love is the most dangerous weapon someone can use against you. Only if you let it be. Han stood, stretching. I'm going to check the perimeter. Think about what I said. Running isn't always cowardice. Sometimes it's the smartest move. After Han left, Min-Jae's phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Rooftop garden, Grand Hyatt, midnight. Come alone. YSR. Seo-rin. He should ignore it. Should focus on getting Amara to safety, executing his sister's plan, disappearing before dawn. But Min-Jae had learned long ago that ignoring problems didn't make them disappear. It just let them grow in the dark. He looked at Amara one more time. She'd shifted in her sleep, her face turned toward him now. Even exhausted and scared, she was beautiful. He remembered the first time he'd made her laugh, really laugh, until tears ran down her face. They'd been at her apartment, attempting to cook Nigerian jollof rice with disastrous results. She teased him mercilessly about his lack of kitchen skills, and he'd loved every second of it. When had he become the kind of man who let that slip away? He made a decision. At 11:45 p.m., Min-Jae stood on the rooftop garden of the Grand Hyatt, the city sprawling below him like a circuit board of lights. He'd left Amara with Han and Dae-young, with strict orders to get her out of the country if he wasn't back by dawn. Seo-rin arrived at exactly midnight. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than most cars, her hair swept up in an elegant style that made her look like she was attending a gala rather than a midnight confrontation. She was alone, as far as Min-Jae could tell, though he had no doubt there were snipers positioned somewhere nearby. You came, she said, stopping 10 feet away. I wasn't sure you would. What do you want, Seo-rin? To understand. She tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. We've known each other since we were children, Min-Jae. Our marriage was arranged before we could walk. You've always been practical, logical, perfect. And then you throw it all away for a woman you haven't seen in 3 years and a child you didn't even know existed. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense to you. But it does. Because I need to know if this is really about love or if it's about control. You hate being told what to do. You always have. Is Amara just rebellion? A way to prove that you're not your father. Continue. 6:31 p.m. As puppet. The question hit closer than Min-Jae wanted to admit. Was that part of it? The satisfaction of finally saying no to a system that had controlled every aspect of his life? Why did you do it? He asked instead. 3 years ago. Why threaten her family? Why not just talk to me? Seo-rin laughed softly. Talk to you? Min-Jae, you're the Ice King. You don't talk, you calculate. You don't feel, you strategize. If I'd come to you and said choose between this woman and your family, you would have chosen family. Because that's who you are. You always sacrifice personal happiness for the greater good of the organization. So you made the choice for me. I removed the distraction. She stepped closer. And it worked. For 3 years, you were perfect. No emotional attachments, no vulnerabilities, no weaknesses. You built this empire into something legendary. You became the man you were always meant to be. By losing the woman I loved. By losing the thing that would have destroyed you. Seo Rin's voice hardened. Don't you see? Amara was always going to be your downfall. Whether I acted 3 years ago or waited, eventually your enemies would have found her. They would have used her and the child against you. At least my way, she lived. She got to run, to survive. If you'd kept her close, she'd be dead by now. The logic was sound. Twisted, but sound. And that was what made it so disturbing. What happens now? Min-Jae asked. That depends on you. I'm prepared to offer a deal. You marry me as planned. We present a united front to the families. Amara and the child disappear with new identities, protected, funded, safe. You get to know your daughter grows up healthy and happy, just far from this world. Everyone wins. Except I lose them. You were always going to lose them, Min-Jae. This way at least they live. He wanted to argue. Wanted to believe there was another option. A path where he could have both his empire and his family. But Seo Rin was right about one thing. His world devoured everything pure. Love didn't survive here. Innocence didn't survive here. And if I refuse... Seo Rin's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Then the bounty stands. Every criminal in Asia will be hunting them. You'll spend every moment looking over your shoulder, wondering when someone will get close enough. Wondering when you'll come home to find them dead. That's not a life, Min-Jae. That's a slow torture. You do that? Hunt a pregnant woman and a baby. I'd do whatever necessary to protect my family's interests. Just like you would. We're the same, you and I. We just pretend to be different. Min-Jae looked out at the city. All those lights representing lives he'd never know, dreams he'd never understand. Somewhere down there, ordinary people were probably arguing about bills, worrying about their jobs, falling in love without wondering if it would get them killed. He'd never been one of those people. Never would be. I need time, he said finally. You have until tomorrow night. The meeting. Show up married and ready to lead, or don't show up at all. Those are your options. She turned to leave, then paused. Min-Jae, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. About Amara. About the choice you have to make. But we don't get to have normal lives. We're not built for happiness. We're built for power. After she left, Min-Jae stood alone on the rooftop for a long time. His phone buzzed. Message from Hygiene. Everything's ready. Private jet leaves at 6 a.m. New identities, accounts in Switzerland, safe house in Auckland. This is your chance to get out. Take it. Another message. This one from his father. Son. Whatever you're planning, stop. Come home. We'll fix this together. And finally, one from Detective Han. She's awake. Asking for you. Min-Jae closed his eyes. 3 paths. Marry Seo Rin and lose everything that mattered. Run with Amara and spend a lifetime looking over his shoulder. Or stay and fight, dragging everyone he loved into a war that would probably kill them all. There was a 4th option. One that hadn't occurred to him until just now. He made 4 phone calls, each to someone he trusted absolutely. By the time he returned to the safe house, the sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Amara was awake, sitting in bed, eating the breakfast Han had brought her. She looked up when Min-Jae entered, her expression guarded. Han told me about the bounty, she said quietly, and about your sister's plan. And I think I should take it. The new identity, the escape. Your sister's right, it's the clean break. You stay here, run your empire. I disappear with the baby. In a few years, everyone forgets about me, and your daughter grows up safe. No. Amara blinked. No. Min-Jae sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. For 3 years, I told myself that you left because you wanted to. That you chose to walk away. It made it easier, believing that. Believing I wasn't responsible for your pain. Min-Jae, let me finish. I built walls around my heart after you left. Convinced myself that I was better off without emotional attachments. That love was a weakness I couldn't afford. And then yesterday, when that gun was pointed at you, I realized something. Those 3 years without you, that wasn't strength. That was cowardice. I was just hiding. He reached out, gently touching her belly, feeling the firm swell where his daughter was growing. I've done terrible things, Amara. Built an empire on blood and fear. I'm not a good man, but I could try to be a good father. If you'll let me, Tears were streaming down her face now. Your world will destroy us. You know that, right? Even if we run, even if we hide, eventually. Then we don't run. And we don't hide. Min-Jae pulled out his phone, showed her the messages he'd sent during his calls. There are 5 families in Seoul who hate my father more than they fear him. I just offered them a deal. Help me take him down, restructure the entire organization, and the arranged marriage system and the old alliances. In exchange, I dismantle 40% of the Kang family operations and redistribute the territory. Amara stared at him. You're starting a war. I'm ending one. My father's way, Seo-rin's way. It's all built on forcing people into boxes, using their love as leverage. I'm done with that. We change the system, or we burn it down trying. People will die. Yes. Probably including me. He met her eyes. But Amara, I'd rather die fighting for a chance at a real life with you than live 100 years as a king in a world where love is a liability. She was quiet for a long moment, searching his face. Finally, she said, You're insane. Probably. This is the worst plan I've ever heard. I know. We're all going to die. Maybe. She laughed, shaky and tear-filled. Okay. Okay, let's burn down your empire and build something better. For her. She touched her belly. Our daughter deserves a world where she doesn't have to choose between love and survival. Min-Jae leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. No, you don't. But you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to deserve her. So I guess that's enough. The meeting was scheduled for 8 p.m. Min-Jae arrived at exactly 7:45 p.m., with Amara beside him. She wore a simple black dress that Hygiene had bought, her pregnancy obvious now that she wasn't hiding it. Min-Jae had his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of protection and defiance. The conference room went silent when they entered. Chairman Kang sat at the head of the table, his face carved from stone. Beside him, Seo-rin looked like a coiled snake, beautiful and deadly. The other family heads ranged around the table: Park, Lee, Choi, Kim-young. 5 families who controlled the criminal underworld of Seoul. This is a closed meeting, his father said, his voice dangerously quiet. She shouldn't be here. She stays, Min-Jae replied calmly. What I have to say affects her directly. He'd expected his father to explode, to order them out. Instead, the old man just studied Amara with cold calculation. So you're the woman who nearly destroyed my son 3 years ago. I'd hoped you were dead. I'm sure you did, Amara said evenly. Unfortunately for you, I'm very hard to kill. Several of the family had smiled at that. Chairman Kang did not. Min-Jae, he said, if you've come here to ask for understanding, for forgiveness, I'm not asking for anything. I'm telling you how this is going to go. Min-Jae pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. That contains evidence of every illegal activity you've conducted in the last 5 years. Tax evasion, murder, extortion, human trafficking. Everything. I've already sent copies to 3 different journalists and 2 prosecutors. They'll publish if anything happens to me, to Amara, or to our child. The room erupted. Shouting, accusations, hands moving toward weapons. Min-Jae remained calm, protecting Amara behind him. Sit down, he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. All of you, sit down and listen. Slowly, reluctantly, they sat. 4 decades, we've operated under a system that treats people like assets. Arranged marriages to secure alliances. Children born into roles they never chose. Love and loyalty weaponized as tools of control. That system ends tonight. You're insane, his father breathed. You destroy everything I built because of a woman? I destroy it because it's poison. Because it turns us into monsters. Because my daughter deserves better than to grow up in a world where she's nothing but a bargaining chip. He looked at each family head in turn. I'm offering a new way. We restructure the alliances based on mutual benefit, not forced marriages. We reduce the violence, focus on legitimate businesses, stop treating every relationship like a potential weakness to exploit. Some of you will lose territory. Some will lose power. But all of us will stop living in constant fear that our children will be used against us. And if we refuse? Seo-rin asked, her voice like ice. Then the evidence gets released. Federal prosecutors get involved, and we all go to prison. Or we kill each other fighting over the scraps. Either way, the old system dies. Chairman Kang stood slowly. You betray your own father, your own blood. For this. He gestured dismissively at Amara. No, Min-Jae said quietly. I'm saving my blood, my daughter, from becoming what we became. His father's hand moved toward his jacket. Min-Jae saw it happening in slow motion, the reach for the concealed weapon, the intent to end this argument with violence as he'd ended so many others. But Park, the head of the Park family, moved first. His hand shot out, grabbing Chairman Kang's wrist. Enough, Park said. I've lost 2 children to this system. One in an arranged marriage that drove her to suicide, another to a rival family's revenge. Min-Jae is right. This has to end. Lee spoke next. My son is 17. I've been dreading the day I'd have to tell him his life isn't his own. I vote we listen. One by one, 3 of the 5 families voiced support. Not for Min-Jae personally, but for the chance at something different. Only Seo-rin and Chairman Kang remained opposed. This is mutiny, his father said. Treason. Min-Jae, you will regret this. If not today, then. Then one day I'll probably die, Min-Jae interrupted. But I'll die knowing my daughter had a chance at a real life. That's enough. The vote was called. 4-2 in favor of restructuring. Chairman Kang and Seo-rin were outvoted, their power suddenly revealed as less absolute than they believed. As the meeting ended and families filed out, making plans for the transition, Seo-rin approached Min-Jae and Amara. You won, she said simply. Congratulations. I hope it's worth what it cost you. It is, Amara said before Min-Jae could respond. Because my daughter will grow up knowing her father chose love over fear. Seo-rin studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. You know what? I believe you. You two deserve each other. Just don't expect the enemies you made tonight to forget. She left, and Min-Jae finally allowed himself to breathe. His father was the last to leave. He paused at the door, looking back at his son with an expression Min-Jae had never seen before. Not anger. Not disappointment. Something almost like respect. You've changed the game, Chairman Kang said quietly. For better or worse, nothing will be the same. I hope you're ready for what comes next. I'm not, Min-Jae admitted. But I'll learn. His father nodded once and left. 3 months later, Amara went into labor at 2 a.m. in a private hospital protected by security from 4 different families. Min-Jae held her hand through 12 hours of labor, and when their daughter finally arrived, screaming her fury at the world, he cried for the first time in 20 years. They named her Zara, Amara's choice, meaning princess in Arabic. Min-Jae's middle name, Ji-hoon, meaning wisdom and virtue. Zara Ji-hoon Kang, born into a world that was slowly, painfully changing. The restructuring took 18 months. 3 family heads were arrested when they refused to abandon their most violent operations. 2 more retired entirely, taking their money and fleeing to countries with no extradition. New leaders emerged, younger, more willing to embrace change. Min-Jae stepped back from day-to-day operations, focusing instead on legitimate businesses and on helping his daughter learn to walk, to talk, to laugh. Amara finished her degree online and started consulting for NGOs, using her connections to Min-Jae's reformed organization to fund development projects in Nigeria. They didn't live happily ever after. There were still threats, still violence, still nights when Min-Jae woke up terrified that someone would hurt his family. But they lived. They fought. They built something new. On Zara's 2nd birthday, Min-Jae stood on the balcony of their apartment, watching his daughter toddle around the living room, chasing a balloon. Amara came out to join him, sliding under his arm with the ease of long practice. Having regrets? She asked. Every day, he admitted. But none about this. About you. About her. Good answer. She kissed his cheek. Because there's something you should know. What? I'm pregnant again. Min-Jae stared at her. You're... About 6 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I told you. She smiled, that brilliant smile that had first captured him 7 years ago in a corner of a charity gala. So, still think burning down your empire was the right choice? He pulled her close, kissing her properly this time. From inside, Zara shrieked with laughter at something, the sound pure and perfect. Best choice I ever made, Min-Jae murmured against Amara's lips. Best choice I'll ever make. The system they'd broken hadn't been replaced with perfection. Power still corrupted. Violence still erupted. People still made terrible choices for complex reasons. But in this moment, on this balcony, with his daughter's laughter and his lover's warmth and the promise of another child on the way, Min-Jae understood something his father never had. Love wasn't a weakness. It was the only thing strong enough to change the world. If you made it to the end of this story, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you thought about Min-Jae's choice. Would you have burned down an empire for love, or would you have chosen power? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like this video to help others discover the story. More tales of love, betrayal, and impossible choices are coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss them. Until next time, remember, the most dangerous thing you can do in a world built on control is to love without conditions.